I'm not a bad person. At least, I didn't think I was. But what happened between my dad and me changed everything. It broke something inside me that I'm not sure will ever heal. It didn't start the way you might expect. There were no plans, no intentions, just silence. Too much silence in a house where love used to live. My mom was always gone, always working at the hospital, saving other people's lives, but never noticing that the two lives inside her own home were falling apart. So, yeah, my dad became my best friend, my only friend. And then, one day, he became something else, something no one will ever understand, something no one should ever know. But I'm going to tell you because I need to. Because I have to. And maybe someone out there will understand how a daughter can fall for the only man who ever truly saw her. I'm sorry, Mom, but this is what really happened when you weren't home. My name is Ashley. I'm 23 years old. And this is the hardest thing I've ever said out loud. People look at me and think I'm strong, like I have it all together. But inside, I've been carrying a truth that won't let me sleep. A truth that started in the simplest way, with love. Not romantic love, just the kind you grow up in. The kind you think is normal until it quietly becomes something else. You see, my mom is a healthcare worker. She works 12-hour shifts at the local hospital, back to back. She's always been strong, focused, admired. Because of that, she was never really home. She wasn't a bad mother. I don't blame her for chasing her purpose. But when you're a little girl and your mom's barely there, you start looking for connection in the people who are. For me, that was always my dad, Mr. Jones. He did everything for me. Made breakfast, braided my hair before school, waited at the end of the driveway every afternoon. He helped with science projects and wiped away tears after school dances gone wrong. Slowly, over the years, he became more than just a dad. He became my comfort, my soft place, my anchor. I never questioned it. Not even when I got older and the compliments came more often. You're turning into such a beautiful woman, Ash. Or, no man will ever be good enough for you. I know because I raised you right. He'd say it with a proud smile, and I'd smile back. What daughter wouldn't? But somewhere along the line, the energy changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just little shifts. Lingering eye contact that lasted too long. Hugs that felt warmer than they should. Late-night movie marathons that turned into deep talks about life, loneliness, and love. I told myself it was nothing. He was just a caring dad. But deep down, part of me liked it. Liked being seen. Liked being needed. Because while Mom was out there saving strangers, I was the only woman left in his world. It was a Friday night. I remember because it had been raining all day, and the house felt cold and still. Mom was on another long shift, covering the emergency ward, and wouldn't be home until morning. That wasn't unusual. Nights like that had become part of our routine. Me and Dad would heat up leftovers, watch a movie, maybe share a drink if I felt bold enough. That night, it was just the two of us again. We chose some old classic, Good Will Hunting. Something slow and full of meaning. I curled up on the couch under a blanket, and he sat beside me. That's when I felt it, the shift. It wasn't loud or obvious, just the weight of silence between us felt heavier than usual. The room was quiet, the movie playing, but I could feel his eyes on me. I looked over. He wasn't even pretending to watch the screen. He was watching me. Not creepy at first, just with a softness like he was trying to remember something.
What?
I asked, smiling, half nervous. He smiled back and laughed softly. You've grown up so fast. I still remember you running around in pigtails and scraped knees. Now look at you, a woman. It should have been a normal thing for a dad to say, but something in his tone lingered. I felt my cheeks warm, not from embarrassment, but from something else. A feeling I didn't want to admit. Something that made me feel seen, yet confused. We didn't say anything for a moment. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face, slow, gentle. His hand stayed there just a second too long. And in that moment, I didn't pull away. I didn't move. I just froze. He blinked as if catching himself and quickly looked back at the screen. I followed, heart racing, unsure what had just happened. But I knew. We both did. That night, when I went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his words, replaying the way he looked at me. Was it wrong? Was I imagining it? Or was there something real, something dangerous beginning to rise between us? From that night on, everything was different, even if we didn't say it out loud. After that night, things didn't go back to normal. They couldn't. I started noticing everything. The way he looked at me across the kitchen table, the way his voice softened when he spoke to me, like I was the only person in the world he could actually talk to. Maybe that was the truth. Mom had become more of a presence than a person, always rushing in and out, tired, distracted. She'd be on the phone during dinner, miss family movie nights, forget birthdays. She was still there, but never really with us. Dad had grown used to filling in the blanks, cooking, laundry, fixing things. He even remembered to bring me my favorite snacks when I was on my period, something Mom hadn't done since I was a teenager. I started seeing him not just as my father, but as a man who had given up so much of himself to keep the house running, to hold our family together, and yet got nothing in return. One day, I found him sitting outside in the backyard with a cup of tea. He looked so tired. I asked, "Are you okay?" He took a moment, then smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just thinking," he said, "sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to be seen. Not just needed, not just tolerated, but truly seen." That hit me in a strange place because I understood exactly what he meant. We both lived in this big, quiet house, pretending not to feel the absence of the one person who should have made us feel loved. I sat next to him, and for the first time ever, our conversation felt like two adults sharing something deep. He told me about his younger years, how he used to love jazz and painting, how he used to dance in the living room with Mom when they were younger until she stopped dancing altogether. "She doesn't even look at me anymore, Ash," he whispered. "Sometimes I feel like I died a few years ago, and nobody noticed." I didn't know what to say. So, I did something unexpected. I leaned over and put my head on his shoulder, just to comfort him. That's what I told myself. But we sat like that for almost an hour. No words, no movement, just a quiet closeness we hadn't shared in years. That night, he knocked gently on my door. He had brought me a piece of chocolate cake from the fridge. "I saved you the last one," he smiled. I took it, smiled back, and touched his hand. It lingered again, that same lingering touch from movie night. Only this time, neither of us pulled away. We didn't say anything. We didn't have to. Something was building between us, and we were both too lonely, too emotionally starved to stop it. That night was colder than usual. Not just outside, but inside me, too. I couldn't sleep. Not because I was restless, but because something inside me was stirring, something I didn't have a name for. It was around 11:40 p.m. I walked into the living room wearing one of my long robes, thinking I'd get a glass of water and go back to bed. But then I saw him, Dad, sitting on the couch, still awake, alone. He had a book in his hand, but he wasn't reading it, just holding it and staring into space. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked, stepping into the room. He looked at me and smiled gently. "Number 2 quiet." I walked over and sat beside him. The space between us was small, too small, and I didn't move away. We talked for a while about nothing, rain, old movies, childhood memories. But beneath the conversation, there was something else, like we were circling around something we were both afraid to touch, but neither could stop thinking about. Then I said something that changed everything. "You know," I whispered, "sometimes I wonder if we've both just been surviving, not really living, just waiting for someone to notice we're still here." He turned his face toward me slowly. For the first time, he really looked at me, not as a child, not as someone he had to protect, but as a woman. A woman who understood his loneliness, a woman who had been aching for connection just as deeply as he had. His hand reached up and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. It was such a simple gesture, but it shattered the wall between us. I didn't stop him. I didn't move. His hand lingered on my cheek. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't even realize I was leaning in until I was already there. Our lips touched, soft, careful, searching. It wasn't wild or rushed. It was slow, heavy, and full of everything we had never said out loud. When we pulled apart, I gasped, not in fear, but in shock that I had let it happen. He looked terrified, not of me, but of what we'd just done. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I shouldn't have," but I stopped him. "I wanted to," I said. The words felt like both a confession and a surrender. There was a long pause. Then he reached for my hand and pulled me gently toward him. We didn't go to the bedroom. We stayed right there on the couch, the storm whispering against the windows while the world slept. What happened between us that night wasn't planned. It wasn't forced. It was emotional, raw, and terribly wrong on paper, but in that moment, it felt like the only warmth we had left. I can't explain the feelings. There was guilt. There was comfort. There was something deeper than just physicality. It was the ache of two people who hadn't been touched by love in a very long time. Afterward, we sat in silence. He held me, and for the first time in years, I felt safe. Not proud, not excited, just still. But that was just the beginning. Because once that line was crossed, it became harder and harder to find our way back. Music,